Hello, and you are back in the Velvet Room with Jokerthefool. This is our 36th episode, and today we'll be discussing the consequences of promiscuity, that young people aren't dating, and New York going all in on reparations. And now, before we get into the topics for today, I'd like to mention that it is Conspiracy Theory Week at Velvet Room Publishing, the daily poll all this week until the 24th. So this Monday to Sunday, we're currently on Thursday right now, will feature a different conspiracy theory. So Monday I did Paul McCartney dying in 1966, which he totally did. Died in a car accident in 66, replaced by Billy Shears. That's what A Day in a Life is about. Then I asked about Kurt Cobain committing suicide, which he did not commit suicide. He was killed by a hitman so Courtney Love could get the royalties from his albums. And today, then I asked about Tupac still being alive, which of course he is. And then today's Daily Poll Thursday was about the dead internet. The internet being dead, the dead internet conspiracy that most of the internet is bots, but that's a little bit too long-winded. We're going to get into the topics right now, and those topics, we're going to start with the first two. These kind of go hand in hand. We're going to talk about promiscuity and the dating market, because you notice a lot of people talking about being promiscuous, and also a lot of people talking about having checked out the dating market. So, but we'll first go into promiscuity and the consequences of this hookup culture of being extremely promiscuous. And there was this one woman on TikTok, this was posted on X, this was making the rounds, talking about how she got herpes, right? Of course, you have unprotected sex with these random people, and one of them gives you herpes, and it sets you up to having to deal with it for the rest of your life. You have to take medication for the rest of your life. If you give birth and you have an outbreak, you can't give birth vaginally. That's what she mentioned. And you have all these things. And it's a very sad thing what this young woman's going through. A lot of young people are going through with the STDs going around. And what's happening is that you'll have a smaller section of the population becoming promiscuous. So we're basically on track to having only two people who have sex with each other, and they film it, post it on OnlyFans or whatever is around at the time, and then that gets broadcasted out to everyone who's living in pods and eating the bugs, and you'll have AI make all these sorts of really fucked things with all that footage. But it's a bit of a joke. But what is basically happening is that you have less people participating in the dating market, but the people who are participating in the dating market are just all in on hookup culture. They're just basically using each other as masturbatory aids, and this has been basically propelled with birth control and the normalization of abortion, and the fact that marriage is seen as dating plus, where if your needs aren't being served at every single nanosecond in the relationship, you just leave, regardless of if you have kids or not, or if you've been married or whatever. There's no meaningful commitment there, or respect of that commitment that exists. So you just use people for pleasure, for sex, for whatever, and then as soon as you're done using them, you move on to the next person. And you'll have a lot of people who have checked out of that completely, but you'll have a smaller portion of the population who are basically all in on that hookup culture, right? That exists. And the consequences of that is that you'll have more of these people getting STDs and having to get experiencing unwanted pregnancies and all these sorts of things, because the amount of sex they're having is ridiculously high. Like dozens or even hundreds of people that they're having sex with. Of course, you're going to have the STDs and the broken sexual boundaries and all these sorts of things that I've talked about before that are consequential when you just use people like that. And it's one of the reasons why I don't like I don't like hookup culture. I don't like sex work as an industry, because it really just encourages and normalizes this sort of culture where we just see people as sex objects and not meaningful humans to build a romantic relationship with, that would lead into the holy trinity of humanity: the man, the woman, and their children. That's all gone. It's more like, can you get me off emotionally or sexually, and then as soon as I've gotten those dopamine hits from you, then I'm moving on to the next person, the next situationship, the next one night stand. And then, of course, you keep doing that, you're going to get herpes, you're going to get gonorrhea, you're going to get the clap, or God forbid, you're going to get pregnant, and the guy doesn't want to be a father, doesn't have that sort of responsibility, so he gives you $500 to go to Planned Parenthood, you get an abortion, you have to deal with the mental trauma from that, if it even exists, because abortion's so normalized. It's your human right. It makes you a person. It's, empowering to do these sorts of things. And, you might have some women who feel that way, but a lot of women, they regret their abortions. They do not like how they feel doing that to themselves and to their unborn children. So you have this mental trauma that you have to carry with that, and along with the fact that you're performing the most intimate interaction you can with another human being dozens of times over with people whose names you probably don't even know by the time they're out the door. So it's a very sad thing. And the fact that you see, this woman talking about how she got herpes is just the tip of the iceberg of all the negative consequences that hookup culture is going to rot upon the culture. But the thing is that, like I said, it's only a smaller section of the population, because more people are checking out from dating, see that this is hookup culture, right? That is bad. They check out from it. It's not worth the effort. And it's also just swiping through apps. All this happens online. So a large portion of people, with men, is that unless you're in the top, 15% or so, that's the only one you can get really consistently participate in it. And then, for the rest of men, it's really not worth it to do online dating with the amount of inattention and all the stuff you have to sift through. So you just end up using pornography because it's an easier thing to do, or you're just spending your time on other things because there are so many other ways to entertain yourself rather than trying to get laid. It used to be back in the day when you didn't have the internet, when you didn't have video games, when you didn't have all these things that you could entertain yourself with. It's like, okay, well, I have to get laid because all I'm thinking about is having sex. And now it's like, well, if I think about having sex, I can just roll one out to a hub video and then I can go back to playing Baldur's Gate or whatever the hell you want to play, or whatever the hell hobby you want to do that the internet will allow you to do, or just in general with all the modern luxuries we have. So it's not nearly as important to have female attention in your life these days as it used to be. So that's why a lot of men are checking out, and then a lot of women see that, if you're trying to do the online dating thing, you see that men just want to use you for sex, and you don't do that, so you just give up on it altogether, and you just go girl boss your way all the way to the sun, and that has its own consequences as well. But that is why a lot of young people have checked out of the dating market, because the internet's essentially ruined it, and the internet has also made it a lot easier to avoid that need for pair bonding, and you can replace it with other things. Now, of course, is it going to be as satisfactory as forming a meaningful pair bond and building a family? Of course not. But if you're young and you're not young and stupid, if you're young and you can spend that energy on other things, then you can convince yourself that what you're doing is the way to go. So that's my little spiel on the modern dating scene. It is a bit depressing when you look at it, but I do think there is genuine hope as long as the people who are dedicated towards not using each other, who want to build families, keep on doing that. I think you will find your match. I'm not sure if I will, but I think a lot of people will be able to find each other, and they'll be able to be happy if you just keep on keeping on. But we're going to move on to the last topic of today's show, and we're going to talk about New York. The New Yorker talks about New York. What a big surprise. So Governor Kathy Hochul is back in the news today, at least the news for this podcast. And every time I talk about Hochul, it's always in the negative. She never does anything that I like. Of course, I'm a libertarian, anarcho-capitalist. I'm never going to like anything that the state likes, but this is very much annoying. So we've got even more race hustling. This is all these people do, is you're hustling race, you're hustling gender, you're hustling whatever thing will get you the most points in the Oppression Olympics. So this will be linked. This is from the governor's, this is governor.ny.gov. Governor Hochul continues New York's leadership on racial equity, signs legislation establishing commission to study reparations and racial justice. So basically, everyone wants reparations, or not everyone, but there are people in the black community that want reparations, that demand that reparations happen, because there is 150 years of generational trauma from slavery, and that's why black people are stupid, broke, and held down by the system because of this generational trauma. They can't break past it, so they need money from the white man, or basically everyone who isn't black, to lift them out of that poverty and generational trauma, because they can't do it themselves. We can't go and have them become hardworking, productive citizens. We can't educate them. We have to lower the testing standards. We have to give them money. We have to pander to them at every step of the way, because God forbid we have a culture of personal responsibility in any group of this country, but especially Black America in the minds of the leftists. Al Sharpton was involved in this. He's one of the king race hustlers these days, and I absolutely despise this. But this is merely a commission, so I suspect it's going to be like 6 months, 6 to 18-ish months after this commission's fully formed. They're going to find that, yes, America's a complete hotbed of racism and reparations are justified. There needs to be a system in place for reparations, and then they'll figure that out, and there'll either be some sort of tax rebate, or there'll be a pot from the income tax, or they'll just borrow the money and everyone gets maybe $20 or so, or something like that, if you're black in New York. And of course this will be rife for fraud if there's any reparation system. People are going to game the system and do all these sorts of things in order to try and get some from the pot. That happened with all the COVID stuff, with all these COVID money. A lot of people were committing fraud over that. But this whole thing is that, and I think California has a similar commission as well. They were the first one to look into this, and now New York's doing this, so they very much follow suit with each other. It is absolutely ridiculous. It is just more race hustling. It's so, Kathy Hochul can sign this and say, hey, look, I care about you poor oppressed black people. I'm going to try and get reparations to you, but this committee has to go and do their work, and they're basically going to sit around and smell each other's farts all day on the taxpayer dime, which, is theft, by the way. To come back and say, well, the black people need money because of generational trauma and systemic racism and all these other nonsensical buzzwords that they like to throw around to prove just how bad black people have it and how bad they're always going to have it, right? If you're black in this country, you're never going to get ahead because white people are holding you down. That's the message that they want. And it is so it is so racist. To say that if you're black, there is no way you can make it in this country. There's no way you can build a life for yourself. And if you have any opportunity to build a life for yourself or to improve or do anything, it's only because white people are letting you do it. That is essentially the message that is being peddled when stuff like this happens, and I do not stand for it. So if you are black, I know I've got international listeners, wherever you hail from, wherever your creed is, as long as you work on self-improvement and do what you can to make your life better, things will get better. Now, of course, there's external factors that'll hold you down, but a lot of things is your mindset, the way you view life, the actions that you take, and the things that you have control over. If you take control of them and you turn them around to work for you, your life will get better more often than not, especially if you live in a first world country like America. That is all I have to say about that, really. I don't like the race hustling. I felt this was very important to talk about. Do not race hustle. Do not do dumb stuff like this. Work as hard as you can while maintaining a good mental state. And of course, you have to have a balance in all things. But you can get things done if you set your mind to it. And that's true whether you're white, black, or any color in between. I think it's all beautiful when you think about it. But now I'm rambling on a whole bunch. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, check out the daily poll. This week is Conspiracy Theory Week. So if you like conspiracy theories, check out, I believe starts with 747 ending with 752, if I've got my numbers right. And we're going into the outro now. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being in the Velvet Room with Jokerthefool. Be sure to follow my Substack, velvetroompublishing.substack.com, to read Machine to Man and all my other projects.